This is Story Recapped. Today I'm gonna explain an action, drama, fantasy, thriller, and western film called Jonah Hex. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. During the American Civil War, a Confederate man named Jonah Hex fought under Quentin Turnbull's command. At the time, war made him feel that he was fighting for what was right, but he eventually realized that he was wrong. One night, Jonah wakes up and finds himself bound while his family is captured. Turnbull notes that his son, Jeb, was brave until Jonah murdered him. Jonah urges Turnbull to punish him, but he stresses that his family is innocent. Still, Turnbull notes that Jonah took what he loved. Therefore, he intends to return the favor. With his family inside, Turnbull's right-hand man Burke burns down their house. Jonah weeps as his family dies, but regains his composure in defiance. Before leaving, he brands Jonah's face with his initials, QT. Jonah is left tied up for days until Native Americans revive him with mystical powers. As a result, Jonah is both present among the living and the dead. He possesses the ability to revive and converse with the dead temporarily. However, Jonah doesn't get his chance for vengeance as Turnbull soon dies in a fire. As a result, he directs his aggression by taking the role of a bounty hunter. Years later, Jonah rides into a town with 3 unconscious fugitives tied to his horse. He delivers the fugitives to the town's sheriff. When the sheriff identifies who Jonah is, the onlookers decide to close their doors in fear. The sheriff complains that there are 4 members of the wanted gang, not 3. So Jonah tosses a bag to him, and when he looks inside, he stifles a vomit. Jonah explains that it's all he could bring from the 4th member. He asks for his reward, but the sheriff refuses, and his officials pose to draw their guns. Jonah notes 5 coffins prepared, understanding that the deal was a fake to begin with. The sheriff orders his men to execute Jonah, but he unveils 2 Gatling guns on his horse that rain bullets on them, then shoots the sniper hiding at the bell tower. Upon defeating his opponents, he takes his reward from the sheriff's body along with his badge. Noticing a stunned man watching him, he pins the sheriff's badge on him before getting on his horse. Before leaving, however, Jonah shoots a lantern, letting its flames engulf the sheriff's station. Meanwhile, a Union train travels with guards and passengers. The passengers notice bandits on horseback riding to match their speed, so the guards calm the passengers. Unbeknownst to them, Burke is preparing a bomb ahead on the tracks. Suddenly, a few of the guards mask themselves and shoot the others. The bandits board the train, holding passengers at gunpoint and revealing dynamite strapped to their bodies. The bandits then unlatch the passenger car from the locomotive, separating them. Once the locomotive passes, Burke triggers the explosives, destroying the rest of the train cars. President Grant learns about the train incident and that Turnbull faked his death and plans to continue his ploys. Grant figures that Turnbull intends to attack during the 4th of July. He recounts how Turnbull attacked the innocent to strike fear and make the public tear down their own government. Lieutenant Grass adds that Turnbull took something from the train and broke into the U.S. Armory in Virginia. Hearing this, Grant assumes that Turnbull intends to build a weapon, so he orders his men to find Jonah, knowing that he was the one who turned Turnbull's gang to the authorities before. In a brothel, a woman named Lila threatens an overly attached client with a gun to convince him to leave. Afterward, Jonah knocks on her door, so she invites him in. The two spend the night together, and Lila implies that he cares about her, which he denies. Instead, she confesses that she worries about him. She flirtatiously kisses his gunshot wounds before kissing him. The following morning, Lila warns him that the officers will come for him since he killed some lawmen. Jonah contends that none of the men from the previous town were lawmen. Still, he declares that he'll just move on, and Lila is pissed that all she does is wait for him. She insists on joining him, but Jonah warns that there's no future with him. As he gets ready to leave, officers barge into the room and announce that the president demands his services. Jonah refuses, but when the officers mention that Turnbull is alive, Jonah's thirst for revenge awakens. Later that day, Jonah meets Grass, who isn't happy about hiring his services. Still, he reveals that Turnbull and his gang are heading to Springfield, Georgia. This information came from one of Turnbull's men, whom they captured from the train incident. The informant died during the interrogation, but Jonah insists on talking to him. Jonah approaches the corpse and resurrects him with a touch. He explains to the man that he's dead, but he brought him back to life with his strange ability. However, the man starts burning up, and Jonah explains that it's the sun's effect on the resurrected. Jonah notes that the dead can see what's happening to the people they knew when they were alive, so he asks for information on Turnbull. The man man, however, never met Turnbull because he was recruited by Colonel Slocum. Recognizing the name, Jonah takes some dirt and places it on the man's head to ease his pain. However, the man starts hearing hellhounds who have come to take him. Jonah then releases the man, turning him back into a corpse. With this information, Jonah heads to South Carolina. Along the way, he recalls how he cut off part of his face with an axe to remove Turnbull's initials from his face. Meanwhile, Turnbull visits a wealthy aristocrat named Edelman Lusk. Turnbull demands information from Lusk in exchange for profit, but Lusk notes that he'd already given him top secret information and cannot give him more. Turnbull chokes him with his cane, threatening him that he must choose wisely to ensure his spot in the new country Turnbull intends to build. With no choice, Lusk divulges the location of the final component for Turnbull's weapon. Turnbull's men soon retrieve orange chemical orbs and kill all the guards on site. On the same night, Jonah reaches Slocum's fight tent. Two gladiators fight to the death while spectators bet on them. Just as the contestants enter the ring, Jonah pins Slocum to the wall, asking where Turnbull is, but the latter insists that Turnbull has died. Slocum advises him to let it go, reminding him that he killed his best friend for honor. He berates Jonah for his betrayal, noting that they could have won the war if not for him. Slocum offers that they have a second chance to take over the country, but Jonah wants to kill him instead. Slocum orders his men to toss Jonah into the ring, so Jonah fights them and tosses Slocum into the ring instead, where his own gladiator kills him. Jonah leaves and strikes the men tormenting a dog, allowing it to fight back. This causes one of the men to drop a torch, which burns down the fight tent. Jonah rides into the night with a dog following him. They reach a cemetery where Jonah visits the grave of Turnbull's son, Jeb. He digs up the grave and revives him. The revived Jeb attacks Jonah and pins him down. Jonah hits him with a shovel, causing him to revert back into a corpse. Jonah revives him again by pinning him to the ground and tells him that he'll let him stand if he promises not to attack again. Jeb accepts, so Jonah pulls him up. Jonah asks for Jeb's help, but the man reminds him that he killed him. Jonah argues that Jeb drew his gun at him, but Jeb defends that Jonah disobeyed. Jonah stresses that his father wanted to burn down a hospital just to make a point, yet he still apologizes for killing Jeb. Jeb notes that he'd been watching both Jonah and his father, seeing that they're becoming the same monster. However, knowing what his father will do, Jeb tells Jonah that Turnbull is in Fort Resurrection. Jeb returns to his coffin but warns Jonah to avoid death for as long as possible because the afterlife has plans for him. Jonah releases Jeb, and he returns to his eternal rest. The following day, Lila finds her clingy client in her room, who reveals that he told the officials where Jonah is to keep him away from her. He also bought Lila from her employer, so he stresses that he owns her. Lila refuses and fights back. She grabs a knife from under her bed and stabs him. Meanwhile, Jonah visits an armorer named Smith. Smith presents him with his new line of weaponry, including a pair of pistol crossbows. Smith learns about Jonah's mission from the president and knows that Jonah hated working for the government, so he questions why he's fighting now. That evening, Jonah kills the guards at Turnbull's hideout. He then enters and finds several blueprints of the weapon. At the same time, Turnbull and Burke marvel at their new weapon. Turnbull recounts how Eli Whitney worked for the US military projects, practically inventing modern warfare. The military then asked Whitney to invent a nation killer, but after Whitney designed the weapon, the military was too afraid to build it. Turnbull, however, isn't afraid and intends to use the weapon soon. As he makes his way out, Jonah encounters Turnbull. The two lock eyes before Jonah brandishes his new weapon. Turnbull's men intervene, allowing him to escape. Jonah's pistol crossbows launch dynamite rounds onto his enemies, creating explosions after another. When he's out of dynamite rounds, Jonah picks up a rifle before searching for Turnbull. Jonah sees Turnbull leaving, but Burke shoots him. When Burke checks the body, however, Jonah is gone. Burke commands the surviving men to search for him, and they find Jonah gunning down their comrades. His men open fire, but Burke stops them as they're surrounded by explosives. Instead, he corners Jonah and holds him at gunpoint. Jonah then shoots a box of dynamite, but it doesn't blow up. Burke scoffs at his helplessness before picking up the bundle of dynamite that Jonah shot. When he turns, Jonah is gone again. Jonah crawls away quietly and whistles for his horse. The horse arrives, allowing him to escape. The next morning, Burke recounts how they shot Jonah several times, but he didn't die. Accepting that Jonah can't easily be killed, Turnbull orders Burke to bring him something Jonah cares about to lure him. With several gunshot wounds, Jonah grows weaker as his horse and dog watch over him. He hallucinates rising from the soil and beating Turnbull to the ground. However, Turnbull shoots back, and Jonah collapses in reality. Soon, Turnbull fires fires the weapon at a peaceful village. The cannonballs land on the soil quietly, but as the public exit the church, Turnbull launches one of the orange orbs, which triggers the rest into exploding, decimating the village. Meanwhile, Burke visits Lila. He brandishes a blade, but she swipes it away and slaps him. Burke slaps her back, beats her, and takes her away. On a field, the dog tries to wake Jonah, but to no avail. Shortly after, someone drags him away. In their tent, a group of Native Americans chants as they heal his wounds. During this, Jonah dreams about the night Turnbull killed his son and wife. Seeing their deaths again, Jonah writhes, and a crow comes out of his mouth. He suddenly gets up, fueled by rage. After regaining his strength, he sends a message to Washington, informing them of Turnbull's intention to destroy the city. That night, Jonah secretly makes his way into Turnbull's Confederate ironclad through the dock. Meanwhile, Lusk shares his hope that Turnbull will succeed, because he'll be hanged if he doesn't. Turnbull abolishes his fears by shooting him in the back. Jonah watches Turnbull's men, but Burke drops on him. The two engage in a fistfight, but Jonah loses sight of Burke. Soon, Burke hits him with a plank and swipes his gun away. Burke evades Jonah's attacks, causing him to tumble. Burke then creates a torch to strike him, but Jonah avoids it and pins him to the wall. Burke kicks him off, so Jonah throws a lamp at him, then dodges his attacks. However, Jonah is eventually pinned down. Burke ridicules his facial scar as he prepares to stab him, so Jonah wets his hand with spilled oil from the lantern, ignites it, and punches Burke. He then directs Burke's head into the ship's spinning rotor, killing him. Unsatisfied with his vengeance, Jonah revives Burke, letting him burn as a corpse, and punches him into ashes. On the ship, Turnbull gives a speech to inspire his men into bravery. The men cheer him on while Jonah prepares to shoot him. However, Turnbull sees him and holds Lila at gunpoint to force Jonah to surrender. Jonah surrenders his weapons and gets knocked out. Soon, Turnbull's men prepare to attack while Jonah and Lila are chained in the cargo. As Jonah plots their escape, Lila picks her handcuffs with a needle and unlocks his. Lieutenant Grass discovers Turnbull's ship and demands that he surrender. Instead, Turnbull reveals his cannon and fires at their warship. He then detonates the cannonballs with the orange orb, obliterating the ship. Meanwhile, Jonah and Lila attack Turnbull's men and steal their guns. Lila watches Jonah's back, allowing him to head to the deck just as the men are preparing to fire at the city. Jonah tries to stop them, but Turnbull finds him, and they drop into the engine room. Cannonballs are launched into the city while Lila tries to stop the man firing the cannons. The man evades her attack and knocks her down while Turnbull hits Jonah with a wrench. At each strike, Jonah recalls his vision of fighting Turnbull, but this time, he's defeated and remembers his family's death. Turnbull's man chokes Lila as she tries to reach for the axe. However, the axe falls off and lands directly in front of Jonah. He grabs the axe to fight back and uses it to jam the pulley that's delivering the orange orbs to the cannon. He proceeds to lock Turnbull's head onto a gear, choking him. He then runs out and saves Lila. The two jump out just as the orb falls in front of Turnbull, blowing up him and his ship. The following day, President Grant gives Jonah his reward and pardons his crimes. He also offers him a job as a sheriff of the United States, but Jonah respectfully declines. However, he assures the president that he will always be in their service during times of need. Jonah leaves to meet with Lila outside as they start a life together. Later that day, Jonah visits Jeb's grave to apologize for Turnbull's death. He then rides away on his horse with his dog.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.